Coming up on our Finding Better podcast, have you ever felt like an imposter? 7 out of 10 people who are high achievers at some point in their careers suffer from the imposter syndrome. I know I did. And Tara Halliday is here to talk about what imposter syndrome is, why we get it, why it's so debilitating, and how to get out of it. So share this with your high achieving friends. They're going to thank you for it. All right, so sit back, relax. Here we go. Hello, 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 and welcome back to our Finding Better podcast. My name is John Suzuki, and I am your host. And this is where we share real life experiences and wisdom of folks who have been there and done that and finding better in their own lives. Because, sometimes the best path to success is to copy it. And so, we don't talk about theories, we don't talk about academics, we don't certainly talk about opinions. It's all about real life experience and things that we've done. And maybe you'll take some of that wisdom and apply it to your own life. Okay, today I have Tara Halliday with me. And it's amazing. We're going to talk about imposter syndrome, and we're going to sprinkle in a little bit of what bullying is all about. And so this is something that's near and dear to my heart, not because I'm a bully, but because I have lived with imposter syndrome for probably 37 of 38 years of my professional career. And there's a lot of you out there who I know are suffering from it. So let me just, and Tara, welcome to our Finding Better podcast. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much, John. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's amazing. All right, I want to give folks a little bit of your background, and then we're going to get right into it. Okay, so we're going to talk about imposter syndrome and a little bit of bullying. And Tara is a leadership coach, and she's an expert in this area of imposter syndrome. We're going to talk about what imposter syndrome is, and she's going to talk about helping folks, maybe you, eliminate it and develop energy and focus and calm and what she calls effortless confidence. Wouldn't that be cool? She's a certified coach and a certified neurofeedback trainer. She's got her PhD in engineering. Whoa. And she's the author of two Amazon best-selling books. One's called Outsmart Imposter Syndrome, and the other one is called Unmasking, the Coach's Guide to Imposter Syndrome. Her mission and her passion are to free high achievers and leaders from unnecessary internal suffering. Internal suffering, right? So that they can live happy, meaningful, successful lives. That was a lot, Tara. You got a lot to live up to in that introduction. That's amazing. So let's start with this. How did you get involved, and what was it that triggered an interest in becoming an imposter syndrome expert?
Yeah, well, I think it's fascinating that your podcast is called Finding Better, because that's
Uh-huh.
really my whole journey is finding better. Right? So after a digression into engineering, I trained as a holistic therapist, and this was 25 years ago now, a long time ago. And I was working with people, and some of them kept coming back, which is not the point. They're supposed to
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
get
mean, I
better.
mean, if you're doing it right, you want people to come and see you maybe a couple, three times, and they're off
And
on
then
their
bye.
own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I started digging into why was that? And it was clear after I did a lot of digging that it was a belief, right? A particular belief that they were holding, and I found an amazing coaching program that resolved this belief, which was identified as the root cause of all human suffering, which is very exciting by
Ooh,
itself. Yeah,
there's a
so
there's a hook for you. Okay,
yes.
good. All right,
So
keep
put a
talking,
pin in
keep
that.
talking.
We'll
Yeah.
we'll come back. Yeah, so and you talk about finding better. So I always try everything for myself. I experiment on myself first. If it doesn't work for me, I don't follow it. If it works for me, well, that's interesting. Yeah. So
Very cool. Doctor, heal thyself first.
bingo.
That's cool. Okay.
Yeah. And so I trained as a coach in this particular belief change, a belief change coaching process. And I was working a few years in that, and one of my clients said, "Is this imposter syndrome?" And I said, "I don't know. I haven't heard of imposter syndrome. Um, I'll have a look." So I went and I went into all of the academic research. I know we don't talk about academics, but I did go and research it all and to understand what imposter syndrome was. And all of the symptoms of imposter syndrome matched all of the symptoms of the belief work that I was doing. So it's like,
Ooh,
that was my big light bulb moment. I do believe I found the root cause of imposter syndrome. So that's been my, and of course, then it's like,
interesting.
then I must, right? Because
Yeah.
over 70% of people experience imposter syndrome, which is feeling like you're a fraud when you're not a fraud, that self-doubt, self-criticism, feeling like you don't belong. And that affects over 70% of high achievers. So it's not an experience thing. Right at the very top of their professions, people are still experiencing imposter syndrome. So it really felt like a mission for me. Here I am. I've been trained in what looks like the solution. So I started, and I've interviewed over 700 executives now about imposter syndrome. And I see these patterns again and again and again.
I think I suffered from imposter syndrome. I didn't have you, to be able to talk to. I wish I did because, for me, and let me describe just what I'd go through. I thought I was a fake, right? I
Yeah.
was an executive, uh, and there were times when I would wake up in the middle of the night, and it would either be through a nightmare or just I would just think of something, and the thought would come across my head of, I'm going to be found out. They're going to find out. Somebody is going to find out that I'm a fake.
Mhm.
And I wasn't, right? I mean, I knew what I was doing. I thought I was really good at it. But is that kind of one of the symptoms of imposter syndrome is thinking
That's
that you're a fake and that you're going to be found out someday?
yes, that's a very, very common one. And there's a contradiction in there, right? And you mentioned it. Logically, you know that you're capable, you're competent,
Right,
you can do
right,
your job,
right.
you've got the proof, the qualifications, the track record, and yet internally you're not quite feeling it. Internally, you feel like, if I go in Monday morning, they're going to find me out and they're going to fire me.
Right. Right.
It makes every Monday morning, and some people it's every morning, a sense of dread.
So
Yeah.
you said that 70% of high achieving people experience that. In one way, I go, holy cow. Folks, as you're out there and you're working and you're perceiving certain people around you as being high achievers, uh, I guess that means if 70% of high achievers are suffering from it, that the person that you're looking at or working with is suffering from it too. I mean, that
Yeah.
that's what the odds say, right?
Absolutely. And the problem is that you look around at your peers and they're capable and they're competent and they're successful and they
They
look
got it
like,
going on.
right?
Exactly.
And
Yep.
you compare how they're looking on the outside to how you're feeling on the inside.
Interesting.
And you don't see how they're feeling on the inside. But when the
And
survey
but but
gets
but
them,
here's the amazing thing is that most of the people in the room are feeling the same thing inside that I'm feeling,
yeah,
right? And looking at me as going, holy cow, he's got it together. What am I doing in this room?
yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's very common for people once they've, finished, got to the end of their work with me and maybe shared with some people around them, not that they need to, and a very common thing was people would say to them, I had no idea. I would never have guessed that you
Yeah.
were experiencing
Yeah.
imposter.
Even more so, I wonder if people come back and go, really? That's how I feel, right? I gotta believe that happens sometimes, right? Where people will say, well, because I never did, but I might actually talk to people and say, hey, you know what? Um, what do you think about this imposter syndrome? I'm going to have them listen to this podcast, obviously, but yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, see, one of the problems in that, one of the reasons everyone keeps it secret, is because we don't understand what's causing it. So we think it's us. We think it's part
of
of our
course.
personality or a weakness or a flaw. And society teaches us that, you don't share all these things with other people. And so
Right.
and if you worry that if you exposed yourself, that's how it feels. If I expose myself to having this weakness,
That's right.
then they
That's
are
right.
going to know I'm a fraud and they are going to fire me. And
That's right. The
it's
whole thing
kept
about
me.
imposter syndrome is not being found out. So why the heck would I tell everybody?
Yes.
Okay, got it. Got it. Got it. Good duh. Yeah, okay, got it. So
And
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, well, I was just going to say, that it was first identified way back in 1978. So it's been around, identified a long time. But really, the internet and public opinion and it has really only known about it since 2015, so 10 years. So
Oh.
this is why you wouldn't have heard of it 37 years. Right?
Okay.
It's
Okay.
just just a few academics doing their
Okay.
research in the corner. Yeah.
Yeah, as I thought about this as I was getting ready for our time together, one of the things that I thought, um, I've always believed in kind of the old saying that says great leaders surround themselves with people who are better than they are. And in my career, I always did that. I always tried to do that.
Mm.
So the first thing I realized in my head was that now I got all these people around me who are better than me, and maybe there's something psychologically going on. Um, and the other thing was that I hired people who were a lot better at me at things that, I used the team to complement each other. And
Yes.
I am not a man who believes in shoring up your weaknesses. I'm a man who believes in really celebrating and leveraging your strengths.
Hmm.
So in my team building, I was always focused on putting pieces together, right? Putting the puzzle together with people who were in disciplines and whose experience and abilities were far better than mine.
Yeah.
Could that have contributed to my insecurity?
It could potentially. However, I would also say that it's also great wisdom to do that. It's a very good leadership style. You know, we get taught in school not to cheat, right? Not to copy
Right,
off someone else,
right.
not to collaborate,
And
right?
get punished if you do.
And you get punished if you do, you'll fail if
Yeah,
you do. But
yeah,
when we get into the business world and especially in the tech world because there's so much specialization going on, you need to build the strength of the whole team because there won't be one individual who
right,
would be able
right,
to do things.
right.
So that's a very good and very powerful leadership strategy
Yeah,
in that. And yeah, it could if you're comparing, and that's one of the big problems of imposter syndrome is this comparing that
right,
people do.
right.
And see, the problem with comparing is we're looking out for the differences, right? We're looking how are they different and therefore better and
Yep,
be best, right? So
yep,
that's what's going on. Now, your brain needs to look out for the differences, right? And you can understand this because if it's looking out for danger in the environment, anything that's out of place, it will.
right,
So if you're driving along past these fields of sheep, and then you see a bright purple sheep, your brain will
right,
go, look
right.
at
Yeah,
that,
right.
right?
Something
Yeah,
wrong.
because so your brain's sensitized to look, and it's designed to look out for the differences. What people can do, and this is a great tip for comparing actually, is if you notice yourself comparing, you can't stop yourself because your brain needs to do it. If you notice yourself comparing, start looking for the similarities. How am I the same as them? What experiences do we share? What talents, personality traits, schooling, how are we the same? And the more, you can write a great long list, and the more you feel like you and the other person are similar, the more you'll feel like you belong, the less you'll feel that everyone
Oh,
is
interesting.
better.
How simple is that?
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I'm rewinding, my experience in my head and wow. Wow. What does it do, right? For people who have this imposter syndrome, what does it do to them?
Yeah, so there's three symptoms, if you like, three
Yeah.
effects imposter syndrome have. One is the imposter syndrome thinking, which you're feeling like you're going to get caught. Yeah, like you're lucky. You just lucked out to be in your position that you are now, and if nobody would hire you again if you tried it again, or a lot of self-criticism, or that sense of feeling like you don't belong, and that's self-doubt. And being very uncomfortable with expectations because you worry that you then might let people down. So that's all the imposter syndrome thinking. That's a lot of negative thinking going on. What that does is it triggers your nervous system, and your nervous system responds with fight or flight or freeze state. These are the ways that the body would defend itself against a threat like a tiger or a snake or something like that. And when your body is in that triggered nervous system, creativity, it affects, so it changes the blood flow in the body. It takes some of the blood flow away from the prefrontal cortex part of the brain. And that means you can't think so well, you can't make such good decisions. It means you're emotionally reactive. Yeah, so you're certainly not as calm as you would be. Your
Right.
creativity goes down by 50%,
What goes
and
down by 50%?
your creativity. You're
Whoa.
50% less creative, and anyone who needs to find solutions to problems, you can't do it. And your IQ, your intelligence, drops by 13 points, which is 10 to 15%
Your
down.
intelligence drops
Your
by th
IQ. There's a 2012 Princeton University study that they compared people in a triggered massive stress state and not, and they did IQ tests, and their IQ was significantly lowered by it. So,
Really?
so the consequences of having your nervous system in the triggered state, driven by those thoughts, are absolutely huge. So your performance is lower. So even though you're successful and you're performing at these high levels,
Right.
it's still less than your actual potential.
Really? So as you were going through that, I felt my blood pressure going up. I mean, I literally felt old feelings, right? And it was interesting because as you were describing it, I was experiencing it, and I found myself kind of in feeling like flight or fight,
Hmm. Yeah.
right? Um, I wasn't going to get up out of my chair and run away from you, Tara. So that, but believe it or not, the thought did pass my mind,
Yeah.
or did cross my mind. Um, wow. So this is so it not only creates a mental impact, but also a physical impact,
Yes.
and
Physical.
also an IQ impact. I mean, and the creativity. Wow,
It's huge. Well,
it's
so just
debilitating.
it really is. Yeah. It's not a small thing. Nowadays people say, "Oh, that's my imposter syndrome." It's like, "No, this is a big deal, right? This is a really big deal." And it creates anxiety, overwhelm, tension. It affects sleep, exactly as you found.
I gotta get up and go for a walk here.
Oh, shake
Yeah,
out, right?
shake it all out. Okay, go. Sorry. Yeah,
That's actually one of the ways to get yourself calm if you notice yourself in a triggered state, fight, flight, is to actually shake out your arms and legs
shake it out.
very strongly. Yeah. Then do some breathing, box breathing, in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4. This is what the special services use to
Right.
get you calm again. And then the third part is to tune in, look around your environment and look for, say, a particular color, like look for all the blue, right? And then listen out for what you can hear and try and identify sounds. What you're doing there is you're tuning into your senses to show to your brain that there is no tiger in the room, right? You're checking out the line of sight,
Oh,
the touch, all of this. You can stroke your arms like, like you're stroking a pet or something. And all of that helps get you calm again really, really quickly.
okay.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very
And
cool.
yeah, so that's a really good thing to do because if you don't do anything, this state with the, stress hormones and everything, it can last up to 4 hours. So you imagine you get triggered twice a day and that's your whole day
That's
stress.
yeah. Yeah. And uh yeah, and I don't know how many times a day I would get triggered, but
Yeah.
I mean, holy cow. Let me ask you a question. And by the way, I'm a very experiential person. Obviously, that's what this whole podcast is about. But as you were talking about box breathing, I was actually doing it just now because I just said I kind of got triggered a little bit just by thinking about it and listening to what you were saying. And so and I was doing this with my arm and I was kind of focusing on the brown in my background.
Hmm.
And it
Perfect.
helped. It really
Yeah.
helped. It helped to calm me down. And so let me ask you this question. You know, the internet, and you
Mm.
talked about this being around, really starting to uh, grow legs in the 2015 timeframe.
Yeah.
One of the other reasons for this podcast is because, the internet has given rise to, and excuse my French, um, so much bullshit,
Yes.
right? And
Yeah.
and you know, and you talk about social media, and my this podcast is about being about a safe place where people
Mm.
can come and learn real things from real people who don't want anything from them.
Yes.
And so, when I think of social media is a lot of social media is about comparing yourself
Yeah.
to others, right? And you see a lot of people out there who really are imposters.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
they're imposters.
Yes.
And they're out there saying, "Look at how wonderful my life is. If your life isn't like mine, you suck." Right?
Mm.
So
Yeah.
has the internet and social media um, impacted folks and in terms of this from the standpoint of the growth of imposter syndrome?
Yeah, that's really, really interesting question. So the amount of
Okay.
people experiencing imposter syndrome is about the same as it was back in 1978. So where there was
Okay.
no internet, no social media. So you can say that it hasn't affected the numbers of people who, when asked confidentially, would admit to it and or would recognize it.
Okay.
But what I think it does is it makes it more obvious what's going on, more present for people. People, rather than feeling a vague sense of being a fraud or not good enough, is actually how it makes us feel.
Right. Right.
It reinforces that feeling of not feeling good enough. So I don't know if it just amplifies it. I've got a quiz that I do for imposter syndrome. You get a score, right? 0 to
Hmm.
100%. And I'm just speculating, but maybe it's, risen people up. So they've still got it, but they've got a higher score because
Interesting.
they're,
Yeah.
they're, and that's pure speculation, but thinking about it, and this is the first time I've thought about it, so it's a great question. Thinking
Good.
about it, I think that could be the
Yeah,
case.
because the other thing about the internet is that everything I typed into ChatGPT a question, and the question was, "Tell me about this John Suzuki guy on the Finding Better podcast."
Oh, nice.
And I was happy with the response. But my point being that it's really hard to hide, right?
Mm.
Because there's
Mhm.
so much information about you, not only about who you are and what you've done and your experience and all that stuff, but also reputationally,
Yes,
right? And
absolutely.
and
Yeah.
so, for me, I was in high tech for almost 40 years. I started my career with IBM in 1984. And I found for me personally that the rise of the internet and the availability of information and Facebook,
Mhm.
stuff like that, right? They say don't screw around on the internet because it's there forever,
Yeah, it
right?
really is the case. Yeah, and you
Um,
see it.
so
Sorry, go on.
no, go ahead. And you see it?
Well, I was going to say you see it on LinkedIn, which is kind of the professional social media, and
Yeah.
people's titles and explaining it so much so that it's a bit of a joke. People do one thing and then they've got this elaborate, fancy sounding title for what they do, or they're sharing their successes, or even if they're sharing their mistakes, they're sharing it as in this is the past, but I'm all better now, kind of thing. It's all gone and I've learned it. Yeah, it's so you don't see people right there in the middle of when they're having a really hard time so much. I think more people are
Yeah.
starting there
Yeah.
now. Certainly since, all the lockdowns and COVID, I think that's changed a little bit the way that society talks about mental health issues, and it's become more acceptable to expose these things.
Yeah.
But it hasn't done anything positive or negative for imposter syndrome.
Interesting. Interesting. I want to one of the things that you also talk about and you speak to is bullying.
Yeah,
And I would love to talk about bullying, not only
yeah,
from the standpoint of people who are bullied, but also from the perspective of the bully,
right.
right?
Okay. Yes.
Is there a dovetail in this conversation?
There's a very
With
nice one, right? So first, from the
interesting.
point of view of somebody who's being bullied, if you're in, and LinkedIn would say a toxic work environment, right? And that can be many things, not just bullying. But if you're in a toxic work environment, it's additional stress. So we've just talked about how getting triggered into fight, flight, and freeze affects you, and affects how you feel about yourself, and really causes all sorts of performance related problems as well as mental health,
Sure.
right? So,
Absolutely.
so it affects, if you're in any kind of company, then it affects across the board everything that everybody does in that environment. So this is why it's essential to reduce bullying, to let it, make it go away, have it not part of acceptable work culture, make it non-acceptable, and that's the way to drive bullying out. Um,
Hmm.
Now, when we come to the point of view of the bully, right? So this is the
Yeah.
person. Remember, I said one of the things that when you don't have best blood flow to the brain, you get emotionally reactive, right? Which means um, fight. Fight
Right.
is the bully state, right? So when you see someone bullying someone else, the person doing the bullying is in that fight state.
Interesting. So somehow they've gotten into that fight state.
Something's triggered them, whatever it is, and you may or may not know, right? Because it can be something from their home life, something, they've got a court case
Right.
going. They can, they've just been told that, they've had their last warning and they're going to get fired, right? Or it could be something way back from their childhood, anything like that. But basically, someone's being triggered into fight. So they're not thinking so clearly, they're not making good decisions, and they're reacting out of that stress. So anytime you see anyone bullying, then unless they've got some, mental health issues like psychopath or
Hmm.
sociopath or
Hmm.
something like that,
Right.
for both people in the kind of normal functioning spectrum, right? It's a stress-driven thing.
Oh. So Yeah, I know there's no easy answers, but the one thing that strikes me is, all of a sudden going from fearing somebody to kind of feeling sorry for them,
Yeah.
you know. For me, I was bullied
Mm.
in the early grade school,
Oh yeah.
and but as I was and this was, let's see, when this is 25 years ago, 28 years ago, so this would have been whenever. Um, I was in my 30s,
Yeah.
okay, late 30s. I would have this recurring dream,
Mm.
and the dream was of this really big guy getting a hold of me, pushing me up against a wall, and I couldn't do anything. I'd just be flailing, and the guy would just be laughing. He would laugh, and I would have this dream at least monthly,
Wow.
and I'd wake up in this cold sweat.
Mm.
So one day I woke up and I said, I'm going to do something about this. This is ridiculous. First of all, that's never going to happen. And secondly, I don't want that dream anymore. So I
Yeah.
started karate.
Nice. Nice.
I decided I'm going to learn how to fight that guy in my dream and get him to stop it. And so I knew that this happened 25 or 30 years ago because I've been doing karate for 25 to 30 years, 28 years. And I got to a certain point in my abilities where I didn't have that dream anymore.
Nice.
And I
Yeah.
haven't had that dream ever since. And so, I wonder if, it's all psychological, right? But
Yeah.
I think I built the confidence that said, and I did something about it that said, all right, come on back into my dream and let's see what happens next.
Yeah. That's brilliant. There's another way that you can use dreams like that as well. I mean, what you did is you taught your physical and mental presence that you could defend yourself, so that it wasn't becoming a trigger in your dream.
Right, right.
When I was in my, again, 30s, what is it about the 30s? I was
Uh,
in my
the-
50s. I'd had for many years this recurring dream of this angry, murderous mob chasing me down the street, and I was running away and yeah. So, and
that's a
then,
bummer.
and again, same thing over and over and over. And so someone suggested it. I tried it, of course, because I experiment on myself. I sat down wide awake and I replayed this dream. But in my replay, I stopped and I turned around and I said, "What do you want?" And
Why are
there's
you
something,
chasing me? Yeah,
yeah, why are you chasing me?
cool. Yeah.
What do you want? And then they answered all together, like in a pantomime, yeah. They answered a story. And then they all sat down, and then I imagined me up on a stage, and I was telling them this. They were like little kindergarten children, and I was telling them a story, and I never had that dream again. So it's that
Interesting.
Mm.
Interesting. Hey, folks. I mean, if take that away from this conversation, in your dream, just say, "What do you want?" You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say that you decided to go out and buy a tank. Okay, that is awesome. That's wonderful. All right, so this has been cool. This has been cool. So I'm a slow learner, and I tell people all the time I'm not always the sharpest knife in the drawer, but I want to go back
Hmm.
to that belief, going back
Oh,
to the imposter syndrome belief, because you
right.
might have talked about it, and this is where I'm not always the sharpest knife in the drawer, but and if you did, I missed it. So I want to make sure that we put that up there. So what
I
was that
think,
belief that you were talking about?
yeah, I think you're pretty sharp because I haven't mentioned it. I just teased.
Okay, good,
Right.
good,
So,
perfect.
so the belief that I found by comparing all the symptoms that is the root cause of imposter syndrome, that through all my work with then people resolving imposter syndrome has been proven to be the key to getting rid of it for good. The belief is that your worth as a person depends on what you do. You do something good, you are good. You do something bad, you are bad. Right? So what we've done is we've not separated our worth, who we are, from what we do. So like people say, I am a doctor rather than
Yeah.
I do doctoring, right? And you can see that it's not even a proper word like that. And that is a belief that is an unconscious belief that was found back in the 1950s to be throughout almost all societies globally. And it's like 99.99999% of people are never taught the opposite, that their worth as a human is exactly the same as that miracle state when they were born, right? And they didn't have to do anything as a baby. And it's still the same now. But we've got this belief that if we do something bad, we are a bad person. That, coming back to the triggers, that tells your brain, if I get rejected, if I get thrown out, if I get accused of things, I'm going to die. Right? So this is a very primal thing back in caveman times. If you were found to be not worthy by the tribe and they threw you out, it was a death sentence because we
Right.
couldn't. Yeah. And your brain still has that primal arrangement, if you
Yeah,
like.
sure it does. Sure it
Yeah.
does. Yeah, our brains have been evolving over thousands and thousands and thousands of years, and the world that we live in has just been a few decades.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. So, for folks who are kind of suffering from imposter syndrome,
Mm.
are there, I mean, obviously they can reach out to you. But are there folks, are there things that two or three things that folks can take away from this conversation that they can do? You know, starting off with the awareness.
Yeah, absolutely. The first thing is it's not you. It's not your personality. Know that. Know it's a belief. And that belief isn't even one that you decided. It was one that never got untaught to you, if you like. It's kind of like a societal thing. So there's no one to blame. There's no, it's not your parents' fault. They never taught you that your worth and your actions are separate
Right,
because
right.
their parents taught them, right? It's very, very rare that anyone learns otherwise. So it's not you and it's not who
Oh,
you are. And that you're not alone because it's over 70% of
that's
people.
huge.
So
That's
just
huge.
knowing this, yeah, you go, okay, all right, and there is something that you can do about it, right? And I think those two things are very powerful. We've talked about the comparing for similarities. That's a really good one. Shaking out, doing the box breathing, and then tuning into your environment to get your nervous system calm. If you do a few of those, then
Huge
it's
difference.
yeah, it's going to dial things down. Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
going to get rid of the imposter syndrome because you need to get to that belief, right? And that's the work that I do is changing that belief. But and then when you change that belief, then you simply don't get triggered, which is very, very cool.
Yeah, that is because in our society, um, you talked about the doctor example. What do you
Mm.
do? I'm a doctor.
Yeah.
What do you do? Oh, I'm a salesperson. What do you do? I'm an engineer,
Mm.
right? And we center on our living when the fact of the matter is we're so much more than that.
Yes.
We're so much more than that. And you talked about when we're first born, um, it's all about love. It's
Yeah.
all about love. And and that's if there was one, if there were, and I love that you said that, and I love that we're having this part of the conversation because if there's one thing that the needs more of, it's a little bit more love.
Yeah.
And for the last for 20 years of my career, I would get up in front of over time thousands of people, and I tell folks it's all about love. It's all about love. And I recently coined a phrase because in this world of technology and um, the growth of technology has just accelerated change, right, in our
Yes.
society. And I've told I coined this phrase that says we've gotten so smart, we've forgotten our heart. And
Brilliant. Yeah.
we need to bring that back,
Yes.
and a whole different segue that we won't get into was I believe that the rise of technology and especially artificial intelligence is going to become a force function,
Hmm.
and will create a renaissance of the heart. And I'm already starting to see that happen. But the this conversation, imposter syndrome and bullying, um, it you've raised my awareness to the extent that I'm going, where were you? Where were you? So I know that there's a lot of folks listening out there that are have gotten a lot of value from you. Um, I certainly have. How can people, is there anything else that you want to add to our conversation? This has been amazing.
Well, I think just going a little bit different, you talk about, love, and people talk about self-love, and
Hmm.
it's so far out of most people's realm of experience, because I get people saying, well, I don't even like myself, right?
Right,
So,
right.
so the stepping stone, so the way we get that, we're, sorry, the way we get rid of imposter syndrome is to develop deep self-acceptance. So when we change that belief that our worth depends on what we do, we accept ourselves, we accept our other people. And what is that if not love?
Yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
Exactly. And but it's so hard.
Yeah.
It's so hard. My daughter is especially these days. And we talked about the internet and social media and all that kind of stuff. My daughter, who has been on my podcast, um, one day ended up with an eating disorder.
Mm.
And she came on my podcast talking about her experience.
Hmm.
And it's one of those things that never goes away, right? And so she had a form of bulimia.
Mm.
And through it all, uh, we as her family went through a whole evolution of trying to understand, because me, I'm a dude, right? It's
Mhm.
like if you're eat,
Right.
right? And so that what is this? But you just learn over time. I learned over time what an insidious mental disorder e- um, an eating disorder really is. And one day we were having a conversation. And we're talking about how um, you have so many people, you have so much love in your life, Kristen. It's just amazing. Your superpower is love. I mean, we're talking
Mhm.
about this, and you and I have so much to be grateful for. And she told me something. She told me something that rocked my world. It completely just set me back on my heels. She says, Dad, she says, where I am right now, I don't deserve to be loved. And and I don't deserve to be grateful. Sorry. All right, I'm done. And that just I'm like, what? And you learn that it's a mental disorder talking, right? And controlling her. And so I mention this because self-love can be really, really hard.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
And my hope is that, and I'll tell you that one of my favorite songs in the whole world is the late Whitney Houston's Learning, Greatest Love of All, Learning to Love
Mhm.
Yourself. It is the
Yeah.
greatest love of all.
Mhm.
And so my hope is, baby steps, one step at a time, one conversation at a time, one learning experience at a time. Folks like you and me can help people get there. And so, so there it is. It's all about love. So that's beautiful. Yeah. Okay. Tara, for those people who want to learn more about you, where can they go? What can they do?
So you can check out my books at any booksellers on Amazon, for example. Outsmart Imposter Syndrome, and for coaches, Unmasking. Um, you can check me out social media. I'm on LinkedIn. So that's Tara-Halliday-PhD. And then my website,
Tara-Halliday-PhD. Okay,
PhD.
good.
Yeah. And then my website is completesuccess.co.uk. And it's complete success because the program that I do is called inner success, right? You've got the outer,
Uh-huh.
you've got the proof. Now let's get your inner success so it's complete.
And you take, uh, you know, you take a holistic approach to everything,
I,
right?
I, I actually, yes, in terms of the whole person, but the approach is actually it's a very systematic,
Okay. Okay.
scientific approach. So you talk about changing the beliefs so that we feel good enough, like we feel worthy, we feel self-love. There's actually some really good neuroscientific work that's been done in the last just 10 to 15 years. And I've got a step-by-step process that makes it easy. So when you said self-love is hard, it absolutely is. But when you know how to change it, and we know, we're working with the way that the brain already works, and we get rid of those triggers, and people feel deep self-acceptance. So it's a very systematic way to get there. It's a
Okay.
90-day program. Yeah.
I'm gonna just know what's coming, Tara. I'm gonna come to you. I'm gonna twist your arm a little bit, and I'm gonna say, "Hey, would you like to come back and talk about self-love?" And hopefully you'll be willing to come back and talk a little bit about that because it is so, so important.
That
So
would be amazing. Yes, that would be fantastic.
oh,
Yes.
wonderful, 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 wonderful. Well, listen, Tara, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for sharing your experience, your background, imposter syndrome, bullying. I mean, it's life, right? And it's all about love. It's all about love. So thank you. I love you. God bless you, Tara. Everybody out there, thank you for joining us. Please share this. If you know share it with those people out there who are high achievers in your life, right? And you might help them. You might help them. And subscribe. So with that, everybody, I love you. God bless you. Thank you again for joining me. We'll see you next time. Bye.